It's Tuesday, September the 13th, 2011, and this is another 2-Minute Tuesday. We're talking about the Google It series that's happening at First United Methodist Church in Allen, and this last Sunday was September the 11th, which marked the 10-year anniversary of the World Trade Center terrorist attacks. And so Todd Harris preached a message on what is our response to terrorism. It happens that I was in New York on Sunday and Monday as well, and so I shot some video there talking about what would be our response to terrorism. And I plan on using that for this video, being there at the World Trade Center and talking about the response that occurred not only in 2001 on the day of the terrorist act, but it continues to happen 10 years later. And that's the courage that was seen, the selfless acts of helping those in need, the faith, the tremendous amount of prayer, the hope and the love that was even experienced, not only then, but even more so 10 years later. And so I was thinking that those really are great responses to terrorism and to the fear that occurs through terrorism. And they are. But after some time of reflection, some greater time of prayer, being a little bit further away from the actual moments of being at ground zero, I realized that there's a greater message. There's a greater response that we can have to terrorism. And that's trusting in a God who is bigger than terrorism. Trusting a God that is bigger than fear. Trusting a God that is bigger than death. A God who overcame death through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Being in the space and the place where the World Trade Centers once stood is now an experience of resurrection. The World Trade Centers obviously haven't been built up again. In fact, there are two large holes where the buildings once were. But those holes are now memorial fountains. They're reflection pools. And around those reflection pools are the names of the people who had died on that day. And being in that space and that place where death had once occurred is now a spirit of resurrection, a spirit of hope, a spirit of love, a spirit of something greater that can even be explained. And so I believe that our response to fear, our response to terror, our response to terrorism is not to fear at all. It's to trust in a God that overcame death. And that same God can overcome any one terrorist act, any terror that we might face in this world, and terrorism as a whole. And that God will overcome terrorism through our response in trusting that God, in loving others, in being a people of hope, in living a faith that relies on a God who's bigger than terrorism. And so I'm grateful for that God, a God of resurrection and a God of love. This is another 2-Minute Tuesday.